Yeah, my name's Shakira Mustafa, and I've been working within the humanitarian space for a number of years now. I graduated way back in 2003 with a degree in media studies and radio production. And then I traveled a lot. I had various jobs, including working within the private sector as an operations coordinator for a reinsurance company. That was way back. And then things really changed for me when I moved to Australia. I worked with the local state government, and I basically, as a contracted civil servant, moving from department to department, mainly working as a projects officer. And then I landed a job at the point at which I realized, for me, what fulfills me is helping others. And I guess it kind of tapped into my kind of altruistic nature. And so from there, I was
sorry to interrupt. I think the Zoom glitched a little bit when you said I landed the role of something, and that's when you got into a role where you were helping people. So was that the job in Australia?
Yes, so I landed the job at Red Cross whilst I was in Australia, after I'd been working for a number of years in state government. And that's when I realized my kind of altruistic nature, and also that, you know, that was where my interests lay in terms of work. So yeah, I kind of slowly pursued that via having a little project in Colombia. That was a kind of, I don't know, again, it was a personal interest, kind of trying to marry my personal interest with work. And yeah, I mean, it worked out in some ways and didn't work out in others. But actually what it led me to was to do a master's in international development at the University of Manchester. And then from then I landed a job quite quickly within the landmine clearance space. And it meant that I could work overseas, like in the field. And so, yeah, now I work for Mines Advisory Group in Iraq. I work within the Syria program, but I'm based here in Erbil as a program officer. And in that role, it's basically grants management. So I'm the grants manager, main focal point for reporting and proposal writing, advocacy for Northeast Syria, for the response in Northeast Syria.
Well, that's a fantastic introduction. And that's almost a kind of a whole CV from Australia to Colombia to Manchester to Erbil. So that's amazing. And would you like to tell us a little bit about where you are right now and what you've been doing for the last few months? Because I think you're relatively new in post there, aren't you?
Yeah, so I arrived kind of late last year here. And whilst, like I said, whilst my role is based in Erbil, the idea is that I will travel to Northeast Syria to be on the ground where the work is and see the work, you know, with my own eyes, so that I can, you know, report on what is going on and write some case studies that are, you know, more alive, you know, and really provide the stories and give our reporting a more human element, because really, you know, it's about, you know, what we're doing for communities, you know, clearing the landmines and providing explosive ordnance risk education to to the population at large, so that that they're aware of the dangers of explosive ordnance. So far, I haven't actually gotten over to Syria. It is a very complex environment that we're working in, and there have been a number of reasons why I haven't yet been able to cross. Currently, the border is closed, as there is some tension and conflict between the Kurds in Iraq and then within Syria. So I won't go into too much detail about that, but it has meant that since my role isn't so urgent, shall we say, there's no point in me going over there, because we have had like special day crossings, which has only happened twice since the border closed in late December. And for emergency kind of evacuation reasons, we're trying to limit the amount of staff that we have on the other side, because obviously it's not so easy to evacuate. But like if we were, 20 versus 10 members of staff. So it hasn't actually affected my work per se. I'm still able to report, we communicate with our teams over there. I can still write proposals, etc. But it's just meant that the side of being able to, do some research and write case studies hasn't quite materialized just yet. So, but life in Erbil is, we have our MAG Iraq program here, and life in Erbil is pretty okay. Obviously there are various security things that we need to be aware of. Like we can't we're not allowed to take regular taxis. We use like an app, which is a bit like Uber, their version of Uber here. And we travel around that way because it's safer. And then, there are plenty of restaurants here, cafes, there's parks. So, there's plenty to do, and there's plenty of other NGOs operating from here. And so it means that you're not like completely isolated or feeling isolated.
How would you characterize the place in terms of the security? Is it considered a sort of post-conflict or a conflict zone, or compared to, say, a Western country? How would you rate it security-wise?
I would rate it as post-conflict / like developing development. Yeah, I mean, I think it's at least this side of Iraq, or should I say the Kurdistan region. I would say they're more in a kind of like development phase, whereby they're kind of restructuring, rehabilitating, and really kind of trying to get themselves on their feet. But yeah, very much post-conflict. It's not, it's not dangerous to walk down the street or anything. People are relatively calm and things. And if anything, at the moment, I would say climate change is something that needs to be really taken quite seriously, just because of water shortages and droughts and then flooding.
You were about to talk about the weather when I interrupted you. So you said it's pretty pleasant in terms of the weather, apart from the shortage of water.
Well, I mean, it has been pleasant, but the effects of climate change are very real. And so we've had like some major storms in the last few weeks, which have caused flooding. I mean, just the other day when it like really rained quite heavily and was storming, to go to the office, which is just like literally a 5-minute walk away, we had to get our car and driver to come and pick us up, just because there was literally a river flowing outside of our house. And all around this neighborhood, it was just river.
Oh yeah. So when you say
So I
our
mean, despite the
household,
fact that the drainage system, sorry, despite the fact that the drainage system is very poor,
yeah.
yeah, it was really quite heavy, and also the flooding was reported in the news, and they, I think 8 people had died in Erbil, so
Wow.
it's quite serious.
I was just going to say when you said our car, it's like you're in some kind of a bubble or a household group that moves between locations.
No, no, not particularly. So in this area that we live in, it's called Ankawa, and it's pretty much like the hip area of Erbil,
Mm-hmm.
for want of a better expression.
Nice.
And where we where we where we live is we live in this kind of communal guest house. So that's me and my colleagues, some of
Right.
my colleagues, and the
Mag
office is
colleagues. So people
correct,
in the
correct.
team that you work with day to day, are they? Yeah.
More or less, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And this is, and Erbil is kind of the hub for where international staff like arrive from the airport, which is really not far away from here.
Right.
And so this is used as a base for, I guess, staff that are also passing through. So they'll come here for the night before they head off.
Yeah.
Like border, etc., and for various other like logistical reasons. That's why we have the drivers. But then it's not if we want to go out and we just take a taxi from this application, which is like Uber.
I was going to gradually move to talk about your career a little bit, because you said earlier on that you studied radio production. I forgot you're a radio producer, so you must be very comfortable doing interviews like this. So it must make it easy for you, since you must have studied that. But now you've also went to do your Masters in Manchester in international development. So would you describe what you're doing now? Because we were talking about Erbil and whether it's a developing context or whether it's a post-conflict. So when you were studying international development in Manchester, is this the kind of, have you landed in your kind of home? Is this your kind of target career that you were thinking about when you made that move? Because you've gone, obviously, from where you were in Red Cross, you did the kind of entrepreneurial thing in Colombia, and now you're doing this mine clearance, which you also, I'm not sure if you mentioned that earlier, but you did some work in Africa for a while in mine clearance. And then now you're doing this job. You're kind of in your target career, aren't you? Because you've developed this for quite a bit of time, and this is quite a good fit job for you, wasn't it? I remember in the process of interviewing and everything, you were very keen to get this job, and you went to a lot of trouble with referencing and clearances and preparation and training and everything. So you've kind of arrived, I mean, albeit only for a month or two, but this is your kind of dream role in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think once I left the Red Cross, I realized that, I guess it was a thought process about how I could marry my personal interests and hobby of like traveling with my work and with my also kind of feeling of wanting to help people and be in these spaces and influence. And so, yeah, this job certainly ticks those boxes for me to help me navigate, to help leverage, my previous experiences to a position whereby I could get a job like this, because it's not just about study, it's also about, your ability to be resilient and your previous work experiences. So yeah, I would say, you know, there's an element of it ticking the dream job box. You know, I still think I've got more to give. But I certainly feel that this is more aligned to me than yeah, sitting in a job in London, a 9 to 5 one, and you know, going home every day.
It sounds like the communication's a big thing, and you're working with people like in a educational sense, as you mentioned earlier. And what are the sort of development aims of the project? Is it to do with people who are maybe excluded from education, or people who are improving their own livelihoods, sustainable livelihoods? What are the sort of aims of the projects that you're working on? I mean, apart from making it safer, I guess, is one thing with the clearing the ordnance, but there must be also developmental things like maybe education for women or for families or something like that. What are the things that attracted you to the to this project and this role?
So sorry, could you repeat the question, because it was breaking up.
Oh yeah, I was thinking you mentioned that you studied international development and you're interested in the developing context and the post-conflict, and also there's an educational side to it where it's not just about clearing the ordinances, but also where people's livelihoods and people's sustainable livelihoods are improved through the contact with the International Development Agency. So what are the things that really attracted you to this work, this type of work, and maybe even just this particular project?
Yeah, so I mean, within this particular project, it's exactly as you said. It's about you know, creating access for people where, you know, explosive ordnance creates a barrier for them, and not just a barrier, it also threatens their livelihoods. So, you know, if you've got a farmer who, you know, is trying to farm a piece of land that's contaminated, you know, the idea is that we clear it and then, you know, the farmer can continue his life and money from his land, etc. And then, you know, maybe children need to, I don't know, walk through some land to get to school or something, but are having to take a longer route because they know that there's a piece of land that's like contaminated, etc. And so I think for me, what attracts me to this work and this type of work is that you are restoring and making safe what essentially is rightfully, you know, for the community, you know, something that is for the community, which, you know, land, space, areas, and you're creating these spaces for development as well. You know, if people do want to either use it for agricultural purposes or to, you know, build a house on it or build a town, for example, build any kind of infrastructure, it just means that they're not hindered by the contamination. Then on the flip side of it, what I also enjoy is the education part, because, you know, whilst we're working as fast as we can, you know, we can't work fast enough, and so it's about educating especially children, what the effects of explosive ordnance is, what it looks like, etc. You know, not to go and play with these things that they find, because, you know, they could basically blow up, etc. And so it's about ensuring that people understand the dangers of explosive ordnance and you know, landmines in general. And so that's why we a lot of the project is around community liaison and teaching key community members to pass on the message about how to be safe, especially when you see, some remnants of war, on the ground. So it's about, it's such a, the thing is it's almost like, if you think of a project, if you think of a development project, or even something like, I don't know, providing water for a community, in order to build something, you need to ensure the land is safe. So the first port of call is to clear the land. Then other NGOs can also come in and build water facilities or what have you for the community. So it's all part of a chain, and I feel like we're at the start of that chain, in terms of ensuring that lives are saved. And especially, we're not just talking about communities on the ground, we're also talking about returnees, so people who have fled and are returning, internally displaced people, persons on the ground, refugees, etc. So, we're clearing these spaces so that, again, I can't stress it enough, that it's safe for anything, for construction, for farming, for all types of uses.
Yeah, that's really interesting, the development thing that you mentioned, because you've got the sort of human development and post-conflict development and sort of sustainable development. And then you've also got the kind of urban development, which I guess in the West is often commercially driven, sort of like, let's build a shopping centre where there used to be a farm or something like that. And I was talking to someone the other day in Brazil, where she was sort of saying, oh, that's a different thing. That's not the same development and sort of human development. There's a divide there between sort of developing communities, say, for example, radical feminist communities in some of these housing blocks in northern Brazil or whatever. And that's a kind of development which we don't necessarily connect with development of sort of urban space occupations. We're putting things into streets, like putting in market stalls or whatever like that, which is also development. So in terms of what you studied and what you wanted to address in your university when you were at Manchester, in terms of international development, is it about those sort of what we might have used to call sustainable development goals, things like education for women, reducing poverty, reducing infant mortality, equal education for both genders, that kind of thing? Are those the sort of development things? What about making money? Is that part of it?
Well, I mean, ultimately, if you're talking about communities being able to restore their livelihoods, I mean, it's kind of natural to want to make money for your family, etc. And so if you're farming land or whatever, and you're producing products or what have you, whether it be more in a modern sense and more in a agricultural sense, I guess you can have modern agriculture and not so modern agriculture. It's all one and the same. Everyone wants to feed themselves, etc. And so I guess people will want to make money ultimately and sustain themselves. So part of this is, like I said, it's that first point at which all the rest kind of can take place. So without clearing the land, people can't move in and start their lives again, or restart their lives. Part of the like the other side of doing mine clearance is also providing jobs. Like we do have a good set of like national staff. There's a lot of them, and we employ them and we pay them and stuff. So we are, on the other hand, providing jobs even through this work, and it's also quite fulfilling for them, because they see that they want to make their country better again. And so it kind of works all round, you know, and they get training, etc. So they can also build up their skills. And so,
that's
yeah,
interesting.
Course, people want to earn money.
Can you say a little bit more about the relationship between the local staff and the international people like yourself? So what sort of things do you do together, and what's the relationship like between the local and international?
Yeah, I mean, our work is, as far as I'm concerned, kind of marrying. It's a marriage.
Yeah.
You know, we're here to support them, to facilitate their work. You know, you almost, the way I see things, in my own kind of personal opinion, is you almost want to make yourself redundant. You know, you're here almost partly in a consultative and supportive way.
Yeah.
You know, we're certainly not here to take over the jobs of others. We're here to, you know, they want the training as well. They want the they want to say they've worked for an international NGO, which also gives them clout. And so the relationship is one of supporting each other in a way. So yeah, it's I think it really is a marriage. That's probably the way that I can describe it. And we're one big family, to be honest. Because without the deminers, like I wouldn't be able to have anything to report to and to propose to be able to get funding to then pay them. And then without them, you know, I can't do my job. So it's really complementary.
Yeah, I guess on a practical level too, they probably would see